Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholes. Today we have our final story from New Zealand for the week, and this is one of my favorite types of tales in that it explains a natural phenomenon. In this case, of course, we're relying on fairies. This is the Leaf Fairies. In the wood, the Leaf Fairies were busy making their leaves. They made them of every shape and size, for each fairy had her own idea of what looked prettiest. Some made them long and narrow like tall and graceful ladies. Some made them round and dumpy, like fat little men. Some made them heart-shaped, and some cut up the edges till they were all dainty points and curves. Some placed them sitting down on the branches, while others set them on slender stalks. There was no set rule for anything. Each fairy followed her own pretty fancy. Most of the leaves were green, but a few were splashed with yellow or veined with red or lined with silver. Everywhere they covered trees and bushes and low-growing ground plants, growing here in clusters and there singly or in pairs. The fairies swung themselves far out on the branches to admire their handiwork. "Now, you must be busy," they said to the leaves. "In the daytime, you must help the roots to gather food for yourselves and all the family, roots and stems and flowers and seeds, and, at night, when we have swept the passages, you must throw out the rubbish." "Shall we never have time to play?" asked the leaves anxiously. "Yes," said the fairies. "When the family is fed each day you may dance with the winds and play hide-and-seek with the sunbeams. And when the autumn is here, and all your work is done, we ourselves will take you for a pleasure trip." The leaves were content, and at once set to work. The fairies made tiny kitchens for them, and here they gathered the food for the family and prepared it for their use. The fairies carried it to roots and stems and flowers and seeds, so they all grew strong and well. At night, the fairies swept the passages so clean that not a grain of dirt was left anywhere. The leaves threw out the rubbish from their kitchen doors. Summer passed, and autumn came. "You have worked well," said the fairies to the leaves. "Now you shall have your pleasure trip." They dressed the leaves in gay frocks, all gold and crimson and bright brown. They loosened them from the trees and set them floating on the wind. "Now follow us," they said. And the fluttering leaves followed them. First, they whirled and danced on the ground beneath the trees. Then they rose in the air and flew away, away, and nobody knows where. You could not have seen the fairies leading if you had been there, for they are not visible to mortal eyes. But you would have seen the leaves following them. Where they went to, I can't tell you. They never came back, though it is said that the fairies did. And that is The Leaf Fairies, from Edith Howe's The Sun's Babies, in which she chronicles a number of the fairies from New Zealand. And, I love this story. This is such a fairy story for children, which is something that I don't really cover on the Folktale Project, but is still so important when we look at how one explains the natural world. And in this case, not just really giving one of the most accurate descriptions of the functions of a leaf that I've seen in these kinds of tales, but also why they fall off and what happens to them. And that's where the fairies really come in. And I do really love this tale. This is Dan Scholes for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And don't forget, if you'd like to help support the podcast in its mission to bring you folklore from all over the world, you can always head over to patreon.com/folktaleproject, where for as little as $1 a month, you'll get early access to every story told. Next week, we're heading off to England for 3 new tales. As always, thank you so much for listening.